joining us live with more now is Salam Al-Marayati, President of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. He's been attending a number of these protests. Thank you for joining us. What's been your experience at these protests? I understand you've actually attended 4 of them. We've seen very violent images in that report there, the pictures of riot police arresting students. What do you make of the police response so far?
Well, the 4 campuses I attended were Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee, George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and USC and UCLA, both in Los Angeles. And they were all very peaceful, orderly. In fact, most of the time, people are spending their moments in reflection and teach-ins to understand the history of the region. So I didn't see anything that was offensive or hateful or intimidating or instigating. The instigation actually happened last night when pro-Israel groups launched an attack against the encampment at UCLA. And nobody understands why law enforcement was not there. It took them hours before they came in. And as usual, they looked to the pro-Palestinian folks as the suspects. That's how we've been treated for decades. And unfortunately, that continues to this day.
We have seen these protests at campuses right around America, each side blaming the other for the violence and inciting of hatred, essentially. Jewish students saying that they feel unsafe to go on to campuses. What is the goal of these protests, if not to intimidate Jewish students? What are you pushing for in terms of US government policy action?
That's a great question. Thank you. Number one, there are many Jewish students that are part of the protests. So this idea that the protests are targeting Jewish students is false. There may be incidents. There's always people on the outside, and there may be saboteurs coming from the other side to create this commotion. We all know that. It's been happening for decades against communities that are protesting oppression. And that's what this protest is about. It's protesting the United States complicity, fueling, and protection, and financial aid and military support for a genocide that's happening in Gaza. So if there's trespassing of these protesters on their own campuses, and if that is one problem, the United States government actually has committed a more grave error in supporting genocide, violating U.S. law, by the way. There are 6 laws, 3 of them, the Arms Export Control Act, the Leahy Law, the Foreign Assistance Act, saying that the United States cannot provide weapons to a country that would then target civilians and violate the human rights of a civilian population, which is exactly what's happening in Gaza. So at least these students who are protesting have a conscience, and they are awakening the rest of us Americans to say that they will not be complicit in this genocide, and they want their schools to divest from any companies that are giving any benefit to the government of Israel in its genocide against the Palestinians.
Well, these protests certainly have exposed what are very deep divisions there in the US over this Middle East policy issue. Really appreciate you joining us with your side of things and your take on it after attending some of those protests. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And again, I'm very proud of the students, and I think we should be defending their freedom of speech and not turning them into the villains. The real villains are the ones that are committing genocide in Gaza right now.
Sam, thank you for your time. Appreciate that.